New apps are offering people the ability to record police activity and share it immediately. Recording police activity has been happening more often after several high-profile cases. One of those cases includes the death of Freddie Gray. Officers in Baltimore are on trial in connection with his death. Cell phone video shows the moment officers took Gray into custody in Baltimore. Prosecutors argue during his arrest, Gray sustained injuries that killed him. But do you know your rights when it comes to recording crimes? Well, joining us this morning is First Amendment attorney Ed Burke. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Good morning.
So, first question, wanted to ask you, how effective are apps and videos in recording crimes in the legal system?
Well, there are a lot of apps coming out. ACLU has an app. Other private individuals have developed apps. But each one's going to be different, and you can't rely completely on these apps. Some of them include information about what the law is, but the law is going to be different from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, state to state.
Absolutely, and one of the laws where things could be different happens to be in the state of Florida, where it's illegal to secretly record someone, right?
That's right. There's an anti-wiretapping statute in Florida, as there is in many states, and it requires consent from all people who are going to be recorded. If somebody thinks they're going to have an opportunity or desire to record a police stop or interaction, it shouldn't be done secretly. It should be done out in the open. It's illegal to record a conversation that would be private or where the people would have an expectation of privacy, but in a out in the open public exchange between a citizen and a police officer, that shouldn't be private or confidential. That shouldn't be illegal to record.
So if something is recorded illegally, could that still be used in a court of law, and how would that work?
Well, certainly it can be a felony to record a private conversation without the consent of all the people to the conversation. So that could lead to a prosecution. There's a question of whether the recording, a secret recording, could be used in a trial that involved the exchange between the police officer and the citizen.
And speaking of police officer, the incident in Baltimore with Freddie Gray, certainly incriminating video there. How do you expect that video to play a role in that trial?
Well, I can't speak exactly to that trial, but certainly the video tells the story of what happens. There's a risk in any of these cases that you might not see what happens before the video clip or what led up to it, and so the whole story has to be told. And we've seen a trend where these videos are coming out, and the case in Chicago, and so it protects both the police officers and the citizens.
And one of the things that police officers use often to protect them are body cameras. Just talk to us about how body cameras can have an impact in cases.
Sure. Well, many police departments are going to body cameras. There are additional expenses. There are questions about how they will be used, whether they can be turned on or off. But in many cases, they're going to support, if a citizen makes an allegation of police abuse or excessive force, the body cam will support that the police officer acted properly under the circumstances. And so I think ultimately they're going to be increasing the trust between citizens and police departments.
Absolutely. And do you believe that more and more of these apps will be used in the future?
I suspect so. There's no question that citizens have a right to videotape or record police. We don't have a right to get involved and interfere with the police when they're engaged in their business. But cell phones are here, video cameras are here, they're not going away, and so we'll see more and more of this.
All right, Ed Burke, thank you so much for joining us here this morning. We really appreciate it.